zero based based on zero. ZBB. Now, first of all, what is a zero-based budget? Zero-based budget. What is a zero-based budget? Now, this is a method that requires all expenses be justified from scratch. The zero-based budgeting requires that all expenses be justified from scratch, regardless of previous spending levels. And instead of simply adjusting the previous year's budgets, the ZBB starts with a zero base and requires each expenditure to be prioritized and justified based on its contribution to organizational goals. Zero-based budgeting. Do you understand? Now we are defining, first of all, zero-based budgeting, and we say that in zero-based budgeting, every expense, all expenses must be justified from scratch, regardless of the previous spending levels. The previous year spending levels is not the baseline in zero-based budgeting. It begins from scratch, and every expenditure has to be justified. All right? It starts from zero base, not the previous year's figures. And every expenditure has to be justified. It starts from zero base and requires each expenditure to be prioritized and justified on its contribution to the organizational goals. Benefits. 1. Cost reduction. By scrutinizing every expense, zero-based budgeting can identify unnecessary costs and eliminate them, and that encourages a focus on efficiency and cost effectiveness. Can you give me another benefit? We are discussing the zero-based budgeting, where every expense must be justified from scratch for each new budgeting period, as opposed to simply adjusting previous budgets. Instead of adjusting previous budgets, the organization begins on a new slate, unlike the traditional budgeting, which often uses historical spending as a baseline. The zero-based budgeting starts from a zero base, and each function within an organization is analyzed for its needs and costs. And the process of cost candidates ensures that all expenditures are necessary and align with the current business objectives. So we are trying to highlight some of the benefits. Improved resource allocation. Is it not a benefit? It promotes the reallocation of resources to higher priority areas, and that ensures that funds are used effectively and efficiently. Any other benefit? Managers must provide detailed justification for expenditures, fostering greater accountability across departments. Encourages accountability, because every expenditure has to be justified. That increases accountability. For enhanced decision making, it enhances decision making, because by forcing managers to justify every expense, it encourages critical thinking and data-driven decision making, and that improves the quality of budgeting decisions. Strategic alignment is also a benefit. It aligns budgeting decisions with the organization's strategic goals, because it ensures that resources are allocated to support the organization's mission and vision. Limitations. What are the limitations of zero-based budgeting? What do you think? Time consuming. The process can be resource intensive, requiring significant time and effort from managers to justify all expenses thoroughly. Time consuming. Yes, complexity, because it requires comprehensive documentation and in-depth analysis, which can be challenging, right? Which can be challenging. Complexity. Is a limitation. Complexity. It requires comprehensive documentation, because you cannot just justify expenses by words. You have to have documentation. Another disadvantage is that there is risk of short-term focus. Risk of short-term focus. Risk of short-term focus. Risk of short-term focus. Risk of short-term focus is advantage. It focuses on immediate needs. It may discourage in long-term investments. There could also be potential for resistance, because change can be difficult and the employees resist the process of justifying their budgets. Resistance. To change, because justifying every expense can be resisted. Now, there could also be a risk of overly conservative budgets. Risk of overly conservative budgets. If implemented, there is risk of overly conservative budgets, because you can imagine candidates that every expense has to be justified, and that can stifle growth. It can also stifle innovation. It requires significant effort. That is another disadvantage. So these are 5 disadvantages of zero-based budgeting.